What is the most disgusting thing you have ever done that you took pleasure in? My wife and I had two wonderful daughters, 13 and 10, and a pretty healthy relationship. At some point things started to appear off. She got very clingy to her phone all of a sudden, made sure to delete the saved password feature on our common PC, stated having phone calls that suddenly ended when I came into the room. You can probably guess what it was. Now having 15 years of marriage behind us, I was hoping it wasn't what it obviously seemed to be. So one day when she told me she was going to spend some time with the girls, I decided to follow her. Sure enough, I find her driving to a hotel to meet with a guy I will call Steve. To say it was a gut punch was an understatement. I literally cried for an hour straight. After I was done with my self-wallowing phase, I decided the best course was getting even. I thought of several scenarios that may or may not have involved me hurting Steve. Eventually I decided to do things more civilly and more importantly legally, but only just. So the first part of the plan was gathering evidence. I could have just gotten a pie, but I had something better in mind. So one day when my wife was at her job and the kids at school, I installed some small secret cameras and microphones I had bought. Due to the setup of our bedroom, I even managed to get one perfectly overlooking the bed. I didn't however use them while I was at home. So a couple of days pass, when I proposed to my wife that the second to next weekend I should take the girls on a trip and stay a night too. I more often than not was the one cooking. I took a far more active role in raising the girls and showed them a lot more patience and attention. She was usually busy working or drinking, so me going alone with the girls on a trip wasn't that weird. So 2 weeks pass, in which time I get my affairs in order and contact a lawyer to write up a separation agreement that would involve me keeping residents in custody. I go on the trip, try to not give anything away to the girls and wait and see if Steve and my wife fall into the trap. When I returned I checked the recordings of the weekend, and sure enough it's a 36-hour fest. When they weren't doing the deed, the dialogue was something even better. I found out that Steve had a wife, but even worse, they also talked about me. And I heard the obvious character assassination that I expected about how small my PP was, an insecurity of mine, how I didn't satisfy her. But there was some really hurtful stuff, like her telling Steve some of my deepest secrets and shameful stories that I had only told her about, just so they could have a laugh. She even told him about my dope story and how I attempted to take my life when I was 16. So at this point I didn't have any doubts on what to do. The next day when the kids left, but before my wife left, I confronted her with the video and told her that either she signs the separation agreement and leaves the house or the girls are going to receive an in-depth explanation of all the positions in which mommy cheated on daddy. I wasn't gonna do that. Just to be clear, I love my daughters too much, but I put the threat there and she was too emotional to realize my bluff. She went through all the stages, denying everything, trying to bargain, threatening me, and getting angry. I let it go through all that stuff. Eventually she signed the paper and she departed that very evening after she told her goodbyes to the girls. I didn't show or tell the girls anything graphic. I was always very honest with them, which is another reason why I was always the favorite parent, so I just said that mommy had been unfaithful. The younger took some time figuring it out, but that was made up by my older getting mightily upset. She had just gotten her first boyfriend, as I'm not sure the term really applies at that age, but she knew enough of the world to get mad big time. This would be important at a would-be custody battle, as though she did for the moment agree to give over custody. I feared, and I was right to fear, that she would try and fight me for the kids. What I didn't expect was for her to use her visitation rights to talk crap about me. Basically she started telling my younger kid about how it was all my fault for not forgiving her. Her lawyer even started demanding she receive custody. So I finally activated my revenge plan. Enter trip to South Carolina. Why South Carolina? Simple. Fort Sumter. I really wanted my daughters to see it. I definitely did not go there because it is one of the last places where revenge porn isn't illegal, and where I could upload my wife and Steve's doings and intimate moments with no worries on the internet and other such sites, as you cannot be prosecuted for crimes that weren't illegal when and where they were committed. I especially made sure to include the clip where Steve could not get it up. I sent the links to my wife's employer, her clients, and everybody in her line of work just to be sure, to Steve's wife and to his firm. Steve soon got a divorce. I feel sorry for his wife as she was an innocent victim in all of this, but I think it's better that she found out. As for my wife, this was the end of any chance to get custody. She soon got fired from her job of 8 years. I got custody. Yes, due to her being unemployed, I got no alimony, but honestly I make enough money to sustain both me and the girls, so I don't care, and I'm good enough at caring for them and they are old enough to allow me to have a full-time job. Several months later, my wife is still unemployed. Last time I spoke to her wife she threatened to come and take my life and how this will be revenge for ruining hers.
The galaxy was amused when they learned that humans have rules of war. They were less amused when they figured out what humans do in war when there are no rules. In the far reaches of space, a lone human cargo hauler came under attack by an alien race that they had yet to meet. An emergency drone dropped out of the hauler with a dump of the ship's computers highlighting the attacker. In a flash, the drone was off to the nearest human star system. That lone incident introduced humans to the wider galaxy, one teeming with alien species, all decades to centuries more advanced than they themselves. It took months before Saul found out who their attackers were, a race of beings half the size and thrice as mean as an ornery grizzly bear. In fact, the race appeared as if bears from Earth evolved to have thumbs and walk upright. Offers for peace were ignored, the response being every envoy killed or destroyed. A few minor skirmishes broke out along the borders of the grizzlies, as the humans had taken to calling them. But not all-out war. Contact with the wider galactic populace was rapid, and Saul learned that the grizzlies were conquerors. They only understood war and conquest. The Great Hunt, they called it with almost religious fervor. Not wanting to possibly place themselves poorly within the greater galactic community, the Saul ambassadors asked what rules of warfare the various species abided by, both spoken and written. The response they received was, "Rules in war? There are no rules." The humans were shocked. What about treatment of prisoners of war? None. Rules of medical transport and aid? None. Anything about use of appropriate force? None. The ambassadors shared a look amongst themselves before responding, "Great peoples of the galactic populace, are you sure there are no rules to warfare between one another? We are free to defend and carry on warfare as we see fit." Laughter was their response. The humans tried to reach an agreement on how to conduct the war. Don't attack medical facilities or transports. No radiological or biological warfare, just conventional weapons. Only attack military necessary targets, not civilian populaces. The Fulark, or the Grizzlies, only responded by dropping nuclear weapons on a heavily populated planet. The humans' reaction was swift. 3 Fulark planets laid in ruin within weeks. Fleets decimated, reduced to frozen tombs in space. The humans sent a message. Failure to abide by our rules of war will result in a phage unlike you have ever seen or experienced in the past. You see, the humans wanted for us to understand their message. Rules in war are necessary. If you fail to abide by them, the consequences are dire. And dire they were. The Fulark dropped chemicals on another human planet, causing untold pain and suffering on the population until they died a painful death. This time there was no response from the humans. The Fulark thought that they had won, as did many other races. We were wrong. Oh, how we were wrong. The humans subscribed to a philosophy of warfare that the galaxy left behind eons ago. Psychological warfare. War is hell, and the humans wielded it like a musical conductor. First, Fulark colonies went silent. Upon investigation, it was as if the population was abducted. Then the humans released an insidious virus that caused the Fulark to revert to their more animalistic nature. Entire planets succumbed to rabidity. The humans offered one last chance. Relent and we will stop here and now. Fail to relent, and the galaxy will know true horror. I wish we would have listened. I wish we would have known the hell that was about to be unleashed upon us. The humans swept aside our fleets as if they were dust. How the humans advanced their tech so quickly we never could understand. But that wasn't what scared us. It was the Turned that they dropped by the millions on our core worlds. The Turned were the colonists that were abducted and turned into cybernetic monsters equipped with all manners of horrid weaponry. Acid, flamethrowers, blister agents, nerve agents, microwave and X-ray weapons. The Fulark fell. We are no more. I come to you, Great Council, to heed my warning. If you go to war with the humans, abide by their rules. If I were you, do everything in your power to avoid war and avoid my people's fate.
I accidentally made my cat gay and he thinks I'm his lover. So my cat, Frankie, recently came down with a pretty severe stomach virus. The vet gave me some antibiotic drops to put in his food, but when I do that Frankie wouldn't touch it. So, the vet suggested using a small dropper tube to insert the medicine directly into his anus. The first time was absolute hell. My cat fought me the whole time, but once the tube was in and the medicine pushed out he seemed to calm quite a bit. The next day he was acting strange. He has always been an independent cat, rarely coming around, never wanting to be held, but as I sat on the couch he started walking back and forth meowing and rubbing my leg. He then went and jumped up on the table where we'd done the application the night before and meowed louder and louder until I decided I guess we will go ahead and do the medicine treatment. This time he didn't fight me though, and when I inserted the tube he closed his eyes, stretched his neck, and let out a noise that can only be described as a moan of pure ecstasy. Maybe the medicine made him feel better, I supposed. That night he slept on my bed curled up right next to me, which he had never done before. For the next week he'd do the same thing every day, meow on the table until he got his fix. But then the medicine ran out. Even though I had no medicine he'd still cry and beg for it. I thought maybe if I inserted it without medicine he would realize it doesn't make him feel better anymore and forget about it. Well, that was 2 weeks ago and he is only getting worse. He walks around me all day with his tail up presenting his rectum and trying to entice me. He is demanding insertions more and more often. Yesterday I caught him looking longingly at the turkey baster. When I sit he jumps in my lap purring and rubbing me affectionately. It was then in horror I realized my cat thinks I'm his gay lover, and that I've been intimately pleasing him for weeks now. Needless to say, the intimate tension between us is palpable. How do I let my cat know that I'm not gay, but still like him as a friend?